Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Thoughts and Coffee. My name is Sarah Barnes-Humphrey. I'm the founder and host of Let's Talk Supply Chain, the host of the Blended Podcast, and the founder of the Blended Pledge. Super excited to be here with you today. We've got Eric Johnson coming on the show, and we're going to be talking all about TPM. But before we get to that, we are also going to be talking about a market update, what you need to know, what are people thinking about, and we're going to talk about burnout in the industry. We're going to talk a little bit about mental health, and then we're also going to talk about VC investment in AI, because 2025 was the year of investing in AI. It was a blowout, lots of big numbers. So I can't wait to share that with you. But first, let's talk about what's happening at Let's Talk Supply Chain right after I talk about our show sponsor, which is the Secret Society of Supply Chain. That's our free membership group. Head over to secretsocietyofsupplychain.com to check it out. We've got some brand new members that I want to give a shout out to. It's Kevin Lawton, Sandra Ledwin, Adenike, and Betty Burkus. Welcome to the Secret Society of Supply Chain family, and we're so excited to have you in there. Now, if you are watching and you're tuning into this show, I want to know where you're tuning in from. So make sure you put that in the comments, and you also know that we like a good fire emoji. So if you're liking the conversation, put a fire emoji in the comments as we go through the show, because I'd love to hear from you. All right. Now it's time to talk about what's happening at Let's Talk Supply Chain. We've got a couple of brand new episodes for you. Now, this is episode 515 with the Breckham Group, and we're talking about precision supply chain operations. This one is actually such a great episode because they talk about how we want to suck less in supply chain in 2026, and they really dive into how we want to be looking at it, thinking about it, doing it. Highly recommend you go and check this out wherever you check out the show, either on YouTube or on Apple, Spotify. And then we've also got a second episode, and this one is with Blue Yonder, and it's episode 516. It's about innovation, transformation, and modern supply chains. We had a great conversation. We really dove into all three of these to give you an insight as to how you should be thinking about your supply chain for 2026. If you're thinking about, obviously you're thinking about transformation. If you're thinking about transformation, innovation, modern supply chains, this is the episode for you. So go and check that out wherever you listen and watch the show. Tomorrow, we're doing like a lunch and learn. So grab your lunch, click the attend button, come and join us for this particular LinkedIn Live episode. It's called Beyond Checkboxes, and we're turning security standards into competitive advantage with OneRail. Now, Julius, who's the Chief Information Security Officer at OneRail, is going to be joining us to talk about what this looks like. Security needs to be at the top of your list for 2026, and we're going to tell you why tomorrow. We've also got Jeff, who's going to be joining us as well, and I can't wait to see you all there. So click the attend button, even if you can't attend live, and we'll send you the link. And then Eric Johnson is here today, but on Friday, he's also going to be hosting his show, TPM today, and he's going to be talking about stop tracking containers, start tracking products. I love that title. So go ahead, click the attend button, and make sure that you show up at 10 a.m. Eastern, or we'll send you the link even if you can't tune in live. And then, of course, we've got a couple of events that we're going to be at. We're going to be at Manifest February 9th through 11th. And that's in Las Vegas. So come and join us. We're going to be doing a whole bunch of stuff on site. And then, of course, we're going to be talking all about TPM and why you cannot miss TPM26. That one is March 1 through 4 in Long Beach, California. I'm going to be doing a bunch of stuff on site there as well. I can't wait. Super exciting. And I can't wait to see you all there. All right. Now it's time to bring up our guest for today. Eric, welcome. How are you?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Good. It's so good to see you on the show. We had you, I asked you to come on the show, I think it was a couple of months ago, and I wanted to dive into the AI topics from like your standpoint, like what's good, what's bad, what's ugly, what's working, what's not working. I loved that show and we had a lot of great feedback because really everybody's talking about AI. And surprisingly, we're not necessarily talking about it today, but that show was epic because we shared some examples of how AI could go wrong, just so everybody in supply chain knows that if they're going to be looking at AI, not everything's going to be going perfect all the time. So I'm glad you're back.
It's great to be back. Yeah, no, I mean, I think AI is like, I think we're like all weighted down by that term at this point. It's like it comes up in conversations with people all the time too. Like, it's crazy how much this is sort of like invaded every aspect of our life now. So, but I mean, look, this is honestly what we're going to be dealing with over the next 10 to 15 years, you know? So,
I don't think it's going away. And you're right. I love the word that you just used, invaded. I feel like one day we all woke up and like AI invaded our life.
I think it definitely feels that way for sure. Especially
and actually,
if you're using a computer at any point of your day. Like,
and while we're on the topic, I don't know if anybody watches 911. If you do, put it in the comments because I'd love to know. But they had an episode, I think it was 911 Nashville. No, it wasn't Nashville, the regular show. They brought in this AI and it was called Sarah, believe it or not. I was like, really, guys? You can go with somebody else's name. And it was so interesting because when it did a bad thing, they tried to kick it out and it wouldn't let them kick it out. It like stayed in the program and took over the program. And I was like, whew, that is stressful.
I mean, Stanley Kubrick made a movie about this in 1964. I mean, it's not like we didn't have fair warning about this. So
that's fair. That is very fair. All right. I have totally sabotaged your introduction. For anybody who doesn't know who you are, can you tell us all who you are and what you do?
Sure. So I'm day job is I'm the technology editor at the Journal of Commerce, which is part of S&P Global. I'm a director at S&P Global as well. Still not entirely clear what that means, but I will use that title. I also host, as you mentioned, a show second and fourth Friday of every month called TPM Today. And I'm also a part of the programming committee at TPM, which is our big conference in Long Beach, as you mentioned. And I'm also chair of our inland distribution conference in the fall in Chicago.
Yes. And we've got Break Bulk in between, which I'm going to be at too. And I can't wait. But today we're here to talk about TPM. All right. Now, we always ask the audience a question of the week every single Wednesday morning. So it's now our time to talk about the poll. The question is, what skill defines your supply chain career? Now, we had 126. I have new glasses and I can't read that. 126 votes, I think. Maybe it was 128. Not entirely sure at this point. 44% of you said solving problems daily. 29% of you said thinking 5 steps ahead. And 28% of you said turning chaos into plans. What did you think about this one? I am not necessarily surprised, especially as we go into the market update and what we're going to be talking about around burnout. So talk to me about what you think.
Well, it's interesting how the response options you gave, because I think most people in supply chain think of like 2 aspects of their job, right? I mean, some people are more focused on one or their responsibility is more one or the other, but basically you make a plan, the plan falls apart and you figure out how to put it back together. Like, that's in a nutshell what supply chain is. So, I would argue that like people's skills need to be pretty much all 3 of these, not necessarily one or the other, but ultimately, I think most people get in the industry or stay in the industry, I should say, because they enjoy the problem solving aspect of it. Like every day is different. There's satisfaction from figuring out a complex problem that involves not just their company, but probably a dozen other companies. And there's satisfaction in figuring out a way to sort of like make something that was broken, putting it back together. So,
yeah. Well, and I think it really goes to show and sort of shines a light on the fact that a lot of what we do as supply chain professionals on a day-to-day basis really provide transferable skills that we don't necessarily think about or articulate when we're going to tell somebody our value. And I think it's important for us to note in the fact that we do a really important job on a day-to-day basis. And some of these things that, you might think aren't hard skills or soft skills, we need to change that. We need to shine the light on some of these things that we are very good at and that we define our supply chain careers on and that we're proud of, and that we can talk about how they are transferable skills and how they will help us in any of the sort of positions that we go for. So I thought it was really interesting. I mean, solving problems daily was no surprise at all. Turning chaos into plans, though, I like the fact that we got about 28% of that one, because again, we don't really think about that as a skill or even a superpower, I wouldn't imagine.
Those are the optimistic respondents. So.
All right. Now it's time for the market update. I want to give everybody an opportunity to click the QR code in the top right-hand corner. That's going to take you to the registration for TPM26. Go and check it out. We've got a QR code that we're going to be putting in the comments and across the bottom. It's there right now for 20% off. So go and click that. All right, Eric, what are we talking about as far as market update? I feel like 4 minutes is probably not enough for this because there's so much going on.
There's so much going on. So I'm literally on the Supreme Court opinion page, refreshing as I'm talking to you, because they've just issued a bunch of opinions, which they do. They're in session now through July. And we're all sort of waiting for the IEEPA tariff decision to come down.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't look like they've issued an opinion on that yet. So we wait yet a little bit longer to figure out if the Supreme Court agrees with the administration on their interpretation of this IEEPA rule, which is an Emergency Powers Act that's given to the president and is sort of not very well defined. And so the current president has used it to sort of justify tariffs, these widespread tariffs that have been on everybody's minds the last year. So we wait to see if the Supreme Court agrees with that interpretation of that rule or whether they overturn the tariffs and what that means. So I would expect that to come at some point. And honestly, that is probably the biggest issue on the U.S. import side. The other issue is the Suez. We're starting to see more and more ocean carriers test out whether they can actually run services back through the Suez instead of sailing around Africa.
That's exciting.
Yeah, Maersk, my colleague Bensi Matthew in India just reported last week about Maersk changing, not just trying a sailing, but changing a service from India to the U.S. East Coast and moving that back through the Suez. It's a small amount of the capacity that generally moves through the Suez, but given the upheaval in Iran right now, it's an interesting time because from the geopolitical side, it doesn't seem like a very settled period, but carriers are sort of playing around with the idea of moving services back through the Suez. Has a huge impact on the industry because if they do start moving back, transit times are affected, inventory management becomes different because you have, about 10 less days of inventory to worry about. But there's also, it would unlock a huge amount of ocean capacity that right now is being absorbed by carriers having to put extra ships into services that go around Africa. So major implications, and it's very interesting because the sort of trials that are happening right now don't seem to be very tethered to what's going on geopolitically right now. So
one step at a time. I'm glad that they're testing it out to make sure. But again, we go from one new normal to another new normal for professionals when it comes to having to plan inventory, understanding the routes, where the volume's going to be, the transit times, what does that look like? And now they've got to rearrange their whole supply chain.
How much more fuel is burned in, if you're a shipper and you're trying to get your arms around how much impact your supply chain has, and everybody has to sail around Africa, that uses more fuel. So your indirect carbon footprint is necessarily longer and more impactful. So, there's all sorts of interesting things that happen once Suez sailings,
Yeah.
become the norm again.
Well, and sustainability is coming back onto everybody's radar. I was talking to Saskia from Blue Yonder last week on a LinkedIn Live about sustainability. What does that look like? What are the regulations that are coming down from Europe? And so all of this makes a difference towards the impact that each one of us are making on sustainability and how we think about it and how we move through the world. So glad that you mentioned that. But again, I want to go back to the fact that this is going to disrupt the everyday supply chain. They're going to have to replan everything. Yeah. And so it takes me into our first article that I want to touch on. And I'm glad this company is talking about it, because I think I've talked about mental health and supply chain for a very, very long time. I think that, we saw some challenges throughout the pandemic around mental health and, how we really had to come together to change supply chains on a dime. And that's just not something that I think we're wired for. And so Gartner says in this article, 70% of supply chain leaders are experiencing burnout or did experience burnout in the last year. That is a big, big, big number. But what it also talks about is if cortisol stays elevated, energy lacks, decision-making suffers, and so much more. And it's about organizations and supply chain leaders recognizing it rather than playing the blame and shame game. Eric, what did you think about this? You talk to a lot of leaders. I mean, there's something happening in our world all the time. You're a journalist. You are writing at all times of day. You're reporting at all times of day because supply chain just doesn't stop.
Yeah, it doesn't stop. Well, it's interesting. I have a few thoughts. So anyone who's been in the industry for a long time, to a certain degree, knows kind of what they're signing up for, right? This is not a clock in at 9 and clock out at 5 p.m. Everything is sort of routine. You do your daily tasks and then you go home and you leave your work at the office. Even if you work from home, you leave it in your home office. So you sort of know, or you should know after a period of time, what you're getting into. But I would say that, if you think about the last 6 years, what people have been asked to do over and above the normal sort of level of craziness, I think probably most people have not really reconciled with themselves how much of a toll that's taken.
Yeah.
It's sort of like, when you hear about someone who has some sort of chronic pain that they deal with, and then after a while, they're so used to dealing with it that they just sort of forget about it. And then if they could magically have that pain taken away, they'd be like, oh my God, I never realized how much pain I was in. I think most people are probably in that boat. They're not even realizing how burnt out they are. They're not realizing how stressed out they are. They know they're stressed, but they don't realize how much of a burden some of this stuff is. So, and, going back to the AI thing, right? There's also, then there's this new thing, this new sort of idea where AI is going to empower people and it's going to take stuff off of our plate and the non-fun parts of our job are going to go away. And it's well, maybe at some point, but right now we're in this messy transition where you have all your normal day-to-day stuff. And then you also have to sort of learn how to coexist or best utilize AI, which is a very uncomfortable thing for a lot of people. And it's mentally taxing. And so I think, it's probably just contributing to more kind of overload, I would say. Yeah. Burnout would happen during the pandemic. I think right now people are mostly just feeling completely overloaded. There's just too much to consider at any given moment.
Yeah. Well, and also we're in a meetings culture. I talk to a lot of leaders that are in back-to-back meetings all day, and then they're like, I don't know when to get my work done, which then bleeds into the evening or after putting, the children to bed or weekends or whatever that looks like. And that is just not sustainable.
Especially now, I know international supply chain, right? You're dealing with people all over the world. You're also expected to do meetings late in the evening, sometimes in the middle of the night, sometimes very early in the morning, right? So not for the faint of heart.
No, it absolutely is not. But there are some good news. There there is some good news. Oh my goodness, if I could just talk today. There is some good news. There's some organizations out there that are recognizing it, some leaders that are recognizing it, and they're modeling active recovery. They're modeling what that looks like. They're giving permission to their teams to be able to take that time. But also, I think TPM is sort of leading the charge with events to make sure that there's a space for people to be able to recharge. Because even at events, it can get very overwhelming for a lot of people. So talk to me about that.
Oh, so, I mean, I go to a lot of events. I know you do too. TPM is, I mean, it's not just because we're involved in it. It is intense, right? Most people's time is like booked up weeks, if not months in advance. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it's really important that people have the ability to kind of like take a breath, quiet space, like meditate, whatever you need to do. So we have a recharge room where people, it's sort of like a bit of a cheat code for people at TPM, because it's a place where it's designed to sort of get you out of the chaos that the TPM is for most attendees. Because we have 5 or 6 sessions going on at sometimes. People are taking meetings in like 8 different places. They have, sometimes I've heard people have 30 meetings in one day, so it's crazy.
It's a lot.
Crazy. So, yeah, it's a lot.
Yeah. It's a lot. So you've got a recharge room. So if anybody's going to TPM, they've thought about this and they've given you a space to be able to do that. So talk to me about TPM26. What do we need to know? What can we expect? There's a lot going on. I know for me, we are going to be hosting the pickleball tournament on the Sunday, which is the first ever at TPM, which I'm super excited about. And you're almost sold out. Like, we're going to have 2 sets of tournaments going on at the same time, because we've got, the people who are professional, I'll say professional, or take it seriously. And then people who have never played before and they want to play and they want to come and network and all that kind of stuff. So that's going to be so much fun, but you have to register and do it through registration to sign up for that. And then I'm also going to be hosting TPM Live, which is always a fun time because I get to talk to all sorts of really interesting people. And I'm going to be on stage this year as well, which I'm super excited about. So talk to us about everything else that people need to know around TPM. I mean, the content is just a do not miss all the time. So
yeah, that's my primary part of this, is I, along with some of the editorial team, sort of take the lead on putting together the program, which for us is the core of TPM. Obviously we know all these meetings happen that I just referenced, and that's where a lot of the business justification for coming to TPM happens. And that's critically important. We have tons of meeting suites that partners take to make sure that they can do economy of scale around meetings with people. So really, this event started off as kind of capturing what was going on the Trans-Pacific trade lane, right as people were starting to put together their annual contracts on that lane with ocean carriers and freight forwarders. It's evolved to be a lot more than that. You've shown Janet Yellen as our keynote speaker. She would not have been the keynote, 20 years ago, right? We wouldn't have thought of having that. It used to be like a carrier or a forwarder. We still have those speakers, but it's evolved to become this sort of geopolitical, global economic kind of look into where things are and how all of that matters to importers, exporters, and the service providers that cater to them. So we have a bunch of different facets of the program that have been around for a few years now, but every year we kind of add new wrinkles and develop them. So TPM Tech is the one that obviously that I care about as the technology editor. That's a program that's really focused on like very nitty gritty technology questions. This is not like a futurist sort of program like you sometimes see technology programs are geared around what's going to happen in 20 years and all that. It's very pragmatic. It's for people who have operations jobs and need to understand what software and what concepts AI mean to them right now. We have this super well attended, this thing always is like standing room only, is our academy sessions.
Yes, they're so good.
Basic foundational stuff that, people might think everybody knows, but actually everybody needs sort of that continuing education component. And these are great. And we get great instructors for them. They get into very specific topics and go in depth. So you get a lot of reference material too. And then cold chain, Chris Brooks, who is my boss, one of my bosses, and obviously a friend of yours, takes the lead on building what is now like the preeminent cold chain program in the industry. So lots of interesting facets to that as well. But the main program, I mean, we haven't even talked about the main program. I'm interviewing Pete Mento on tariffs. Pete Mento is like all over LinkedIn, giving people an understanding of trade policy, tariffs. I'm doing a one-on-one with Ryan Peterson of Flexport. I'm talking to Jens Dreves, the CEO of Hellman. We have a bunch of different sessions with shippers talking about how they're figuring out how to take costs out of their supply chain since they have to accommodate tariffs, the cost of tariffs. And there was sorry, I'm speed talking here right now, but there was an interesting report that just came to light yesterday from a German think tank that researched the impact of tariffs and found that 96% of the cost of tariffs that were implemented last year are falling on the importer or the US consumer and not the export supplier.
Right.
So, all of that is pretext for like everything that we're going to be discussing on stage next year. We also have Lars Jensen, who's everybody's favorite container shipping analyst. So he always has the last word at our event.
He absolutely does. But going back, I'm like, refund. Going back to that 96%. I mean,
well, imagine. And look, I mean, we could have talked for 30 minutes just about this, but imagine the Supreme Court decides that all of those tariffs get refunded eventually. It's not going to be like a same day refund.
It's absolutely not.
A long time, right? What if you charge your customers more? What if your supplier took a discount or gave you a discount? How does that money work its way back to the people who actually paid it? Very very
complicated. Can you give us one key point of the tea that you're going to spill with Ryan?
Well, okay.
I'm putting you on the spot.
I will give a little spoiler. I'm not one. So, I mean, I think it's important that I've never done an interview with him in a live setting.
Okay.
TPM, podcast, anything. So I think that's the unique thing. I think people have been wanting to see this for a while, so I'm excited for it to finally happen. I think one of the elements that we are definitely going to do is he is going to address some of the more inflammatory things that have been said about him on LinkedIn.
Okay.
I'll be honest, I'm not sure how constructive that is to an importer, but it will be entertaining, right? So we're not going to spend a lot of time on that. We're not going to spend the whole session, but we will spend some time talking about it because that is part of the Flexport and the Ryan Peterson story. So.
Yeah. Well, and if you're looking for a podcast interview with him, I interviewed him early last year. So head over to letstalksupplychain.com or Let's Talk Supply Chain YouTube. Go and check out that interview and come up with some questions for Eric for the session. Send it to him.
I am taking any and all suggestions on questions. No
I love that.
I mean, and we'll be taking questions from the audience too. So if you're live in the room, which you should be, by all means, we'll get as many of those as we possibly can.
Let's do it. And if you send in a question, let them know that you saw it on Thoughts and Coffee and you're sending in a question because we asked you to. I want to give a shout out to MK over on Let's Talk Supply Chain Instagram. Now, I know we only have like 1 minute left for this last article, but I think it's important. We're going to put the article in the comments so that you can go and read it yourself. Really quickly, $200 billion was invested in 2025 in AI. They're saying that the trend for 2026 is raise or partnerships. So I think they're talking about strategic partnerships. Quickly, what are your thoughts on this, Eric? What do people really need to know? And again, one more thing, QR code, top right-hand corner, go get your registration for TPM and use the discount code. But quickly, Eric, what do you think on this?
Well, I don't think it's all that unusual for the VC world in aggregate to fall in love with a particular type of investment. I mean, we've seen that over the years. It's like, remember it was Uber for XYZ.
Yeah.
Was the model for what will be invested in. Then it was marketplaces. Then so I think you can see that AI is a trend that every venture capital group feels like they need to be a big part of. I think it's more impactful because it's broader than a single type of model. Now, I would say most of that investment is probably around agents. So building like digital workers or digital workforce of agents that do things that people do without having to pay them benefits, and
Right.
them being grumbling about their hours and wanting a vacation and all that stuff. So, it's a lot of that investment is around this sort of like agentic future that people kind of visualize.
Yeah.
But remember also, 9 out of 10 VC investments don't do well. They fail. They go to zero.
Right.
So out of that, whatever of that number, 90% of it will go to zero. The other 10% will cover all of those lost costs and go straight up. So
yeah, so interesting. And I was watching a video the other day, and they said for each professional, they're going to have 4 or 5 AI agents that they're going to have to manage. So
totally.
It's coming. That's the future.
Yeah.
I want to give a shout out real quick to Mike DeAngelis. He's going to be at TPM, and he's saying that he wants to see everybody there. So again, grab the discount code, go to the QR code, go to the TPM registration page. We would love to see you there. Send Eric some questions for any of the sessions, including the one with Ryan Peterson. Maybe DM him on LinkedIn, and he'll be sure to ask those questions. Thank you to everybody who joined us this week. I'll be back again next week, and I hope you all have an incredible day.